In the ethical debate on torture, the utilitarian position proposes a conditional justification based on the calculation of consequences. From this perspective, the morality of an action does not depend on its intrinsic nature, but in the results it produces. Following the line of thought of philosophers such as John Stuart Mill, says that what is right is that which generates the greatest possible happiness for the greatest number of people. In this sense, if torturing an individual with vital information, for example, in the scenario of a time bomb, can prevent the death of thousands of innocent people, the action will be morally justificable. What matters is not the means, but the overall reduction of suffering. From a utilitarian perspective, the suffering of a single person is considered a lesser evil compared to the catastrophe that could be avoided. It is a difficult decision, but one guided by the principle of the greatest good for the greatest number. Furthermore, the state has a moral and practical obligation to guarantee collective security. From a utilitarian perspective, if the exceptional use of torture can prevent an attack or protect society, then it can be seen as an extreme but necessary tool to preserve the general welfare. It will be a limited measure, justified only when its results is a clear minimization of total harm. In the words of Jeremy Bentham, founder of modern utilitarianism, nature has placed mankind under the government of two sovereign masters, pain and pleasure. Thus, utilitarian ethics evaluates every action according to its ability to reduce suffering and increase happiness. Under this logic, even a practice as controversial as torture could be, in exceptional circumstances, be considered morally defensible if its consequences result in a greater good for the majority.
In contrast to the utilitarian view, the position based on the natural law strongly opposes any form of justification for torture. This ethical current, inspired by thinkers such as Thomas Aquinas and Immanuel Kant, is based on a fundamental principle, which is the human dignity is sacred, inalienable, and inviolable. From the perspective of the natural law, each person has an intrinsic value that does not depend on their actions or circumstances. As Kant states, act in such a way that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or that of any other, always at the same time as an end and never simply as a means. Torturing someone, even to save lives, turns the person into an instrument, which denies their human condition. Therefore, torture is an evil in itself that cannot be justified by any argument of utility or convenience. The natural law holds that certain acts are morally wrong by their very nature, regardless of the consequences. Therefore, torture involves deliberately inflicting pain, which makes it incompatible with moral reason and with the natural rights that protect the human life and integrity. Furthermore, according to the principle of double effect, an action can only be considered morally acceptable if the negative effect is not directly sought. In the case of torture, suffering is not a side effect, but the very objective of the action. Therefore, it cannot be justified even by an apparently noble end. To allow it, it would be corrupt. It will be to corrupt the moral and rational order on which justice is based. So, in the word of Thomas Aquinas, natural law is the participation of rational creatures in eternal law. And from this perspective, a legal or political order that authorizes torture departs from reason and the common good. Therefore, under natural law, torture is not only immoral, but contrary to the very essence of humanity.